Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. Are you a goofball that loves Giants football? If so, sit back and relax as we talk about the team that both excites and frustrates us so much. And now, here are your goofball hosts, Drew and Rob.
Welcome, fellow goofballs, to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. I am Drew, joined as always by...
me, Rob. Oh, and we got some exciting news for you today.
Yeah, we're going to go over actually something different here. We've been giving you guys a lot of news, a lot of updates, a lot of rumors. Instead, we thought, hey, we're not far from the offseason truly beginning here. Let's give you guys some targets here for free agency. So what we did is we went through PFF listed their top 100 free agents this free agency time period. We went through the top 25, found 15 of them that make some sense. And what I mean by that is I'm not putting on here quarterbacks. We've talked about quarterbacks ad nauseum. So sorry, Sam Darnold, we can't talk about.
I was going to say Sam Darnold. It's gone. Bye.
We've just talked too much about the quarterback stuff. I want to give you guys fresh stuff here. So we also did not include edge rushers because let's be honest, we have the 5th overall pick a few years ago, a $30 million guy. We're not getting any big name edge rusher. Are we going to get some? Probably some backups, maybe a reserve or two, but definitely not going to get a Hassan Reddick or a Josh Sweat. That's for sure. Those guys are probably not coming. So wanted to keep it real. So didn't include linebacker. Bobby Okereke is already here. We're good to go. I'm going for positions that make sense the Giants may want to upgrade. What positions are those? Wide receiver. Darius Slayton's a free agent. They said they're going to bring in a big weapon. Running back. Again, I know we got Tyrone Tracy Jr. here now, but he's not necessarily a full-time workhorse back. We don't know that yet. So wouldn't be the worst thing to bring in a veteran. Maybe let Singletary go on his merry little way there after this disappointing season last year. Offensive line, because we're the Giants, we always need offensive line help. Corner, because you saw our corners last year, right?
Terrible.
And safety, because we do have one of our two starting starting safeties in Jason Pinnock that'll be going away potentially in free agency. So positions of need there for a good, legit starter to step into there. So let's get right into it there. Very first one we got is the one that I keep hearing rumors about all over the place. And I don't mean just the Giants. I mean, the whole NFL is talking about what's going to happen with this guy. Tee Higgins. And it seems like this has been the second year in a row now we're having this because you know why? Because it is the second year in a row we're having this conversation.
I was going to say.
So PFF, when they did their rankings, said Higgins rarely missed time over his first 3 seasons, but has unfortunately been bitten by the injury bug in back-to-back contract years. That said, when Higgins suited up in 2024, he consistently produced at a high level. The 4th-ranked player in PFF's free agency rankings last season, Higgins figures to be one of the most sought-after players on the market again in 2025. And you got to think that, I mean, who knows, anything can happen, but you got to think the Bengals are not going to franchise tag him again, right?
I doubt it.
Yeah, like that. It's possible, but that's one way to really piss off a player to say, we're going to draft you. You can't go anywhere for 4 to 5 years. Then we're going to tag you twice on top of that. Like your whole career is basically over before you get free agency sometimes. This past season, as they mentioned, he has some injury issues, 12 games, 9 starts, 73 receptions, 911 yards, 10 touchdowns, which was a career high. He's missed, as he's mentioned, some time the last 2 seasons, missed 10 games over the last 2 seasons. I feel like there's there's certain players that people just think are better than what they are. I feel like Tee Higgins falls into that category.
Gonna say.
Yeah, he's only cracked 1,000 yards twice in 5 years. He's never cracked 1,100 yards. He's never gotten more than 75 catches in a season. And people look at it and go, wow. And I think part of it is he's on the Bengals. Obviously, not this past season, but prior years, the Bengals have been a good team. That gets you a lot of airtime. That gets you a lot of press. Therefore, obviously, you had the one Super Bowl run. And then you throw in the fact that people are looking at him going, oh, well, Chase is the real number 1 wide receiver there. Imagine what Higgins could do if he was the number 1 wide receiver. And there's some legitimacy, I think, to that. But you could also sit there and say, well, what happens if Tee Higgins is the number one and he's now facing number one corners instead of number two corners?
Yeah. I mean, we use this analogy all the time. Your Batman and your Robins, and Higgins is neither. For you, comic book fans out there and everyone, he's more your Nightwing. He's not quite your A-lister number one receiver out there, but he's usually better than your number two receiver.
Yep.
Well, and works well with a team. Like, so to say, if we have him, like, he probably would succeed next year because he's going to be number two to Malik Nabers. He's going to have the full game because there's going to be some certain games where their one corner that we're facing against is probably going to get Tee Higgins, and he's not going to play as well. Then Nabers going to feast, and it's going to go back and forth.
And he is a big receiver too, so he does play different than to what Nabers is. That's for sure. But I look at this. I'm going to give you a player, and I'm going to see if you can guess what player I'm talking about here. Okay, because I think this is an interesting analogy to use when we talk about Tee Higgins. Big receiver, obviously, that's what Tee Higgins is. A decent sized receiver, jump ball guy. So here's a player that got injured one year. The year right before that, had a full healthy season, had 65 catches, 1,190 yards, and 11 touchdowns. A very Tee Higgins-esque type of number, I would say. A little more yards than he gets, but, a decent Tee Higgins style. That was 2019 he had that year. Who do you think that is?
2019? Slayton?
Yeah. Kenny Golladay. And I'm not saying he's Golladay. I'm just saying people act like this guy is going to be an amazing wide receiver and going to be an automatic number one wherever he goes. And I don't look at him as that kind of player. I look at him as a guy who could be that kind of player potentially. But I'm not going to sit here and make it a given thing. And I'm telling you right now, if he has free agency, someone's going to pay this man like $30 million a year. He is not worth that. Not with what he's done so far in his career. No offense to him. He's a great player. I'm not trying to say he's a scrub. He's a great player. He's a guy that's going to get you about 65 catches a year, right around that 1,000-yard mark, and be a decent touchdown guy. Like, that's a good, solid player. He's not a top 5 wide receiver.
No.
And because it's free agency, you're going to pay him as such.
Which is crazy, too. Because, and then we're going to talk about too much last year, even though I took second place in the league. Thank you very much. Fantasy football. You talk about a 10, 12-man league. He's nowhere near number one receiver.
No.
In this league. He's a second tier, bottom of the barrel, tier 2 receiver.
Yeah.
You're talking 12-man league. So he may fall to the 3 spot in some of those leagues, which means 32 teams. Guess where he's at? He's at that second round.
But that's where that thing comes into be is, do you think his production is hurt by Chase or do you think it's helped by Chase? Meaning that he's not the main target, but he's also not getting the top end corners.
As I'm saying, I think it's both.
Yeah.
It's weird to say I think it's both because he's not getting the number one targets because he's playing with such a dynamic player like Chase.
Yeah.
So you have to respect Chase as a quarterback and the corner. So obviously, number one, sometimes Chase double coverage still gets the ball. And guess what? Bro still throws to him in double coverage. So it's definitely in his numbers that way. But at the same time, it leaves Higgins wide open so much.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And again, it's not taking away from him. I just want to be clear. I don't want people thinking we're Higgins hating here. Okay. We've been a big fan of Higgins ever since Magnum PI. But what I'm saying is that he's not elite. He's a good, above average, borderline great, but he's not elite. And that's the difference, is you're going to have to pay him like he's elite to get him in free agency. And I don't know about y'all, but I am tired of the Giants overpaying in free agency.
Yeah.
I don't know. Everyone overpays in free agency. Let me be very clear on that as well. But we paid $30 million last year to an edge rusher that is not elite. He is a Tee Higgins of edge rushers and Brian Burns.
Okay.
I don't want to keep making that mistake. I don't want to keep making the mistake. I want to go ahead and get guys in here who are value picks. And if I'm going to pay someone like their lead, they better be elite.
Yeah.
Higgins is an elite. So let's talk about somebody who is elite, though. Trey Smith. And that's a very bad picture, by the way, of him, I got to say. I even chose it. It's a very bad picture. It's what I could find real quick. But PFF's right up on him. Smith, 78.8 overall grade in the regular season, ranked 11th amongst guards. And he will still be only 25 years old when free agency opens. That's a good combination for a big payday, given that multiple players at the position signed deals at or exceeding $20 million per year in 2024. The complicated element when predicting a contract for Smith is the reason he fell to the end of the 6th round in the 2021 draft. He was diagnosed with blood clots in his lungs. On the field, he is every bit of a prize free agent. Factoring in his health is the key question. And I remember that when he dropped, I was flipping out. That was one of the guys I was like, the Giants need to take this guy. They need to take him. Even if he has a short career, he'd be a really good player. I didn't think he'd be this good, to be honest. I'm not trying to say that, but I thought he was like, you're telling me you're going to get somebody who could be a legit starter in the 6th round? Go for it. Why are you not going for this?
Yeah.
But listen, the medicals come into it to play, though. They do. Like, it's just, we can be all like, oh, it's not his fault. Like, but it's still a business. You're still making a large investment. He's still going to be set for life no matter what. Be clear on that as well. But I do think that the Giants or whoever looks at getting Trey Smith needs to get something in writing on the contract about these blood clots potentially being an issue. Because unless the doctor tells him, hey, don't worry, you're good.
It's something you have to take a caution all the time because at the end of the day, like, one, it's his health too. And two, it's a business, like you just said.
Yep.
So, and not to break it down, not say he's a car, but are you going to pay, $50,000 for, a classic sports car that might break down that needs a lot of work, or you would go take
every classic sports car breaks down. Will need a lot of work.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Are you going to take something like that when you have to drive an hour to work, or are you going to pay that $50,000, or are you going to buy a brand new car coming off the lot 2025?
A brand new car.
Like, it's not as flashy, but you're going to have it every day. And it's not going to break down you. And not to say like he's a piece of equipment like that or anything, but when you're paying that kind of money for for a guard, like, you want to make sure he's on the field.
I feel like the big thing for me is what does the medical staff say, and what does he want? Because if you can get him on a deal where, let's say, the first 2 years are fully guaranteed and the third year is only partially guaranteed, you might take the risk.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying I really think it's that. Like, but you're still talking about, again, a large contract. And that's the problem you're going to run into there. But assuming we do what the Giants think they're going to do, assuming for a second, and they're going to go ahead and get a quarterback in the draft, you need to protect him. Ironically enough, we saw what happened to Patrick Mahomes when he couldn't be protected in the Super Bowl. I say ironic because Trey Smith obviously is a Chief right now. But I don't know. I feel like what's going to end up happening with Smith is there's going to be a bidding war like you would not believe. And it's going to be like last year where you're going to see him get like $100 million contract. And I'm not there. As much as I want to improve this offensive line, I'm not there. You're the 11th best guard, okay, out of 64 hypothetical starters there. That's elite. I'm not disrespecting the man. But I feel like it's almost like he's a move that you would make when you go, you know what? Team's ready. We got that guard spot available. Quarterback was taking too many hits last year. Let's go plug him in. Like, we're not at the plugging stage. We're at the forming stage.
Yeah.
And that's why I just can't get behind it now. I love the age factor. That's definitely nice. I mean, let's be honest. Last year we're talking about guys in the in the draft that were 25 years old. It's the nature of the difference there. He got out much earlier, so it's going to help him. And I'm telling you, he's going to get paid. I would not be shocked at all if he becomes the highest paid guard in all of football when this whole thing's done. And I'm not willing to give him that kind of money. Not.
Nope.
So.
No, thank you. Go to Texas, go to El Paso.
Exactly. So, all right, next up. Like I said, we need a safety. And you got Javon Holland sitting there. Literally in the picture, he's sitting. And, another really young guy. He's 24 years old. He does turn 25 March 3rd. So, I mean, he's not going to be 25 for the season there. PFF said a second-round draft pick out of Oregon in 2021. Holland was ranked as one of the 5 highest-graded safeties in 2 of his first 3 seasons of the league. In the league, need coffee. He earned a career-low 63.0 PFF overall grade in 2024, but his body work more than speaks for itself. You talk about the next one. I can't. I'm just messing up to it. This past season, 15 games, all starts, 62 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, a sack, 2 QB hits, 4 pass deflections, and 1 forced fumble. Now, what's interesting is keep in mind they also changed defensive schemes because the Dolphins did go ahead and change defensive coordinators this past season with Nick Fangio obviously going to the Eagles. I got to look at that and go, we need to watch the tape here because I feel like there's always that chance that he didn't get used properly when you see a big drop when a new defensive coordinator comes in. And I don't pretend to be a Dolphin fan enough to know that. I'm not going to sit there and say I watched all the All-22 tapes on the Dolphins there. I wish I had that kind of time. Goddamn pesky work.
But I do know the Dolphins defense was much improved. And it kept them in a few games, even though they lost games. But they had a lot of lower scoring games.
Yep.
Especially with Tua being out at the beginning of the year. They lost games, but they were kept in the games, losing like 14-10.
Yeah.
Instead of winning games like 40-27 or 70 to
and you look at what's going on with his career now. Again, 2 great years, one not so great. He's 25 years old when the season starts. It's a safety position, so it's not as high ranking thing. I don't think coming off the year he had, he's going to go out and break the record here for safeties. I don't know. For all I know, he's going to be a guy that all of a sudden someone goes, like, same thing we're saying. He's young. He's had 2 out of 3 really good years. Let's just pay him. And somebody goes crazy and pays him ridiculous money. If that's the case, we might as well have kept Xavier McKinney.
100%.
And I think that's something we're going to talk about some of these things. Is Joe Schoen, I think, is going to look at some of these and go, if I give this guy the same money that McKinney wanted, I'm going to get raked through the coals like you wouldn't believe.
Yep. Also McKinney also kind of like reset the market.
He did, and that's why I look at it and I go, can a guy like this get $10 to $12 million a year and have that be adequate? Or is he going to command, closer to that 15 to 16, 17 million kind of because of his age? I think that's the big thing is the age here. You don't get guys who had good seasons and then all of a sudden this young become a free agent, just walk. And that's assuming that the Dolphins even let him walk. They could sit there and just tag him. Let's see if he gets another good year. So, interesting enough, we got Daniel Meehan here says, I am a Dolphins fan, buyers beware, takes too many business decisions, hasn't been the same since injured both knees in Jets game 2 years ago. I'm not bummed about losing this guy. That's why I love it when we do these shows live, because people get this kind of feedback like that. But my big thing is he's more of a free safety role, which is what we were hoping, obviously, to get a ball hawk kind of guy out of Tyler Nubin. But Nubin didn't play that role. So maybe that's what we need to get as a guy who is a ball hawk and let Tyler Nubin play more of a strong safety kind of role. Maybe we just need to be more patient with Tyler Nubin. These are all decisions we have to make now. And like I said, I like Holland. I just think that if we go ahead and get him, it's got to be for the right price because there's risk. There's risk because of the fact that he's coming off an off year. There's risk because of the fact that he didn't necessarily succeed with the new defensive scheme. And you have to make sure he's a fit, or else you're paying a guy that just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So Connor, by the way, says, "What's on my shirt?" This is a Dalek from Doctor Who.
How about Dalek these balls?
Wow. That went a little crazy there. Let's
Sorry, Zoolander.
Let's turn the page on that one.
Yeah.
As Bob Seger said.
Yeah.
Next up, we got another wide receiver.
Yeah.
Another wide receiver here.
It's a guy you should know about.
Chris Godwin. Yeah, I just do know a little bit about this guy. Actually, I almost got the chance to meet him at a charity event that I offered tickets to, but instead we had a show that night, so I came on here.
Oh, well, that's a shame. I would have done this solo.
No. Okay, no. Long story short, I got told that day, and I didn't have a clean suit to wear. It's a charity event. It's like $1,000 ticket and stuff like that to go.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'm not gonna be the guy showing up out of out of
Kmart Blue Light Special suit that's wrinkly.
Yeah, exactly. Not gonna happen. It's too much respect for my game there. So anyway, Chris Godwin. And by the way, I couldn't believe this when I was looking up stats and everything on this guy. He's gonna be 29 in a couple of days. I feel like he's been in the league for like 30 years.
Well, I mean,
he just feels like that guy who's been around forever.
He's had a very solid career, which we'll get into.
Yes.
But he's also had a very solid career as a Robin / the Nightwing.
Which we do need. So PFF said Godwin has consistently displayed reliable hands, dropping fewer than 6% of catchable passes in 7 of his 8 NFL seasons. He maintained that standard in 2024, earning an 85.7 PFF receiving grade through nearly 7 weeks without a single drop on 52 catchable targets. However, Godwin suffered a season-ending left ankle dislocation. He is no stranger to entering free agency with an injury, and hopefully the recovery will be even quicker this time around. And that injury was brutal.
So, I mean, yes, but refresh my memory. Like, it actually looked way worse than it was because it was just a dislocation.
It was a dislocation.
Which sounds terrible, but there was no injury to the ligaments, the soft tissue around there. It was just pop it back in place.
There was even rumors in the Tampa Bay area, being that I live there and I hear these things, but he might even come back in the playoffs depending on what happened.
Trust me, as a guy in fantasy football that has him as his Robin all the time, I knew all about that and kept him on my injury reserve spot.
Yeah. So his 7 games this year he had, all 7 are starts, 50 catches, 576 yards, and 5 touchdowns in 7 games, guys. Let that sink in for a second there. 7 games. That's damn good.
Yes.
Like he would have been like an 1,200 season at that point, yardage wise there. He would have had double-digit touchdowns. He would have had over 100 catches. That's the kind of season he was on stretch for. So I get it. He injured his ankle. That's part of the equation. How healthy is he? Again, part of the equation. This is the stuff we can't tell you about. We got to have the injury, be looked at by the medical teams at that point, and we're not a part of that.
Yeah, I have to do some drills. Got to see how he moves.
Yep.
So
here's what I love about bringing him in potentially. He is used to being a number 2. He's not going to come in with an ego. He's going to come in point blank if the Giants were to bring him in as a legit number 2 receiver, knowing that sometimes he may take over a game just because he's on a roll that day. Knowing he's going to get his catches no matter what because he's that good, he'll get them. But he just has to be number 1. He has to be the hero. That's Nabers' role. Nabers would basically be his Mike Evans now.
Yep.
Different player, different style player, 100%. And sorry, no offense to Nabers, he's not in Mike Evans' category yet because Mike Evans is doing things only Jerry Rice has ever done. So,
I was about to say, was he 11 seasons with at least 1,000 yards now?
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because some of them are really
impressive.
1,002, 1,003. Like he's had a couple like that. But it's still impressive. It really is.
Yeah, it doesn't matter because I mean, he limped over the finish line this year, almost dealing with some injuries. Chris Godwin had a great start of the year. Mike Evans had a slow start, which sometimes that's how it works.
Exactly.
And so he's, like you said, he's used to being that Robin. He's okay with that role because he just knows that he's been playing with a guy that's going to go down in the Hall of Fame.
And he's also a guy that sits there as a guy who's got an excellent reputation in this league. I mean, again, living in the Tampa Bay area, I can give you a little more insight in him than I can some other people, but I'm telling you, you will not find a person in this league with a better reputation than Chris Godwin. Like, all seriousness, and he does a lot of charity work as well, with animals as well, which is, you know, near and dear to our heart. We're both animal lovers, so he's actually that's what his Chris Godwin Foundation does. That's the thing I was supposed to go to potentially meet him, but like I said, does a lot of things with charity. He'd be a great mentor. He'd be a guy that would be able to go ahead and help, not just because people forget it's not just Nabers. But Wan'Dale Robinson's going to, you know, still a young player at that point that still isn't fully developed. He'd be an excellent help, because what we just say over there, he said, fewer than 6%, dropping fewer than 6% of catchable passes in 7 of his 8 seasons. What was our issue last year, Rob?
Drop it like it's hot. Drop it like it's hot. Is it a hot potato? I don't know.
It's almost like these things would work out and be a great, you know, decision, a great addition at that point that can go ahead and teach these guys some of what he's learned over the years, because savvy veterans typically know how to catch the ball. That's what they do. They run great routes, and they do catch the ball well. You know, the one thing you got to be careful with is his age, along with the health. We talked about that, but the health is what the health is, and we have no way of knowing that. But his age, he's going to be 29, and you figure he's going to have 3-4 years. You can't do a 5-6 year contract with this guy.
No.
And if you do, it better be all dead weight at the end that you can just cancel and cut him and call it a day.
Yeah, it's one of those 3-year contracts.
Maybe 4. I'd go 4. It depends. It all depends on what you guarantee, and that's what it boils down to. And that's why I have trouble saying exactly time frames on these things, because, again, I can give you a 6-year contract, but if only the first 3 years or 2 years are guaranteed, what do I care?
Yeah, fair enough.
Not so worried about it. So, but like I said, I think he'd be a great addition if he leaves Tampa Bay. And I know there's a lot of people in Tampa Bay that do not want him gone. Again, it's very well liked within the community, within the team. But there's been a lot of rumors that this might be the end of him, because they need to pick up some pass rushers for Tampa Bay. That's their big thing right now. They need pass rushers. And what do pass rushers cost? A ton of money. So let's talk about another player that's going to probably command a decent amount of money. DJ Reed. So obviously Giants fans tend to hear a lot on the Jets because of the fact that, you know, New York area is the way it is. You kind of get stuck when watching the Jets games as well. It's not so fun. I remember those days all too well. DJ Reed is 28 years old, though, guys. And you forget sometimes, because he's been a couple teams. He's been in the league for a little while, but he's not that old. He's not, don't get me wrong, he's not young, but he's at that age where he's still in his peak, at least for a couple more years. PFF said Reed is set to enter free agency after earning his 6th straight season-long 70.0 plus PFF overall grade. His 70.1 coverage grade in 2024 ranked 31st among qualifying cornerbacks. He excelled in PFF's advanced matrix, boasting a 51.28 lockdown percentage. On the year last year, 14 games, all starts, 64 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, a sack, QB hit, and 11 passes deflected. That's a lot of goddamn passes deflected, by the way, guys.
Yes.
That's an impressive amount. And what I like about the DJ Reed edition is he's good enough to be a CB1, but he's not great enough to be upset if Deonte Banks beats him out. And that's, if you are Giants front office, you want Deonte Banks to win that CB1 role because you drafted him. You drafted him in the first round. You traded down a spot to get him even. But if what happens is what I think is going to happen, and Banks is a CB2, then you got a guy who can legit be a CB1 for a couple of years till you figure it out. You know, and like I said, it may be 2-3 years and that's it. That's fine. Go back to 2-3 years ago and how much different do things look? 2-3 years ago, we're talking right at the turn of Joe Judge and Brian Dable. How long ago does that feel?
Feels forever ago.
Exactly. So sometimes you just got to bite the bullet and call it a day. And if you give this guy a 3-year deal, money wise, like guaranteed wise, it's not the end of the world. You get him for 28, 29, and 30. And maybe, like I said, maybe you do a 5-year deal for, a decent amount of money, and you have 3 years of it guaranteed. He's happy.
Yeah.
You got a good player. You got a guy who's used to also mentoring. He was a big mentor for Sauce Gardner, obviously, with the Jets. Maybe Banks will listen to him. Who knows? That's the question. I don't know if Banks will listen to anybody right now.
So he's got to listen to someone, you would think.
Someone. Yeah. Oof. But like I said, I think it takes a lot of pressure off Banks while not taking out the possibility of Banks staying CB1 if he outplays him in camp. So
correct.
All right, let's talk about another receiver. We got a lot of receivers coming up this year, guys. A lot of veteran receivers too, which I like. Cause I like the idea of getting like I said, a mentor for Nabers here. We got to talk about Amari Cooper, which obviously we saw him this year when he was still a Brown. He probably had about a third of his receiving yards for the season in that game, because he absolutely torched Banks over and over again. PFF says even at 30 years old, Cooper will be an attractive option for teams looking to improve a wide receiver, having earned a PFF receiving grade above 70 in every full season he's been in the league. He struggled with drops in 2024, though, failing to bring in 15.4% of the catchable passes thrown his way in the regular season. This past season, 14 games, 10 starts, and obviously his games are mixed between the Bills and the Browns since he was traded midseason. 44 catches, 547 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Clearly, not even close. Clearly, the worst statistical career of his season. Worst statistical season of his career.
I was going to say.
So the questions start being now when you're 30 years old. You know what they say, 30 is when you start to die. Has time started to hit him a little bit?
I think it was Deshaun Watson.
I think it was a couple things. I mean, listen, the Browns were talking about trading him before the season even started. They really didn't use him a ton, which is weird. I mean, you saw what happened with Jerry Jeudy towards the end of the season. He went off. That could have been Cooper. Yeah. They just didn't want to use him as much for some reason. And I'm inclined to give him this is a fluke season kind of thing because of his long career. But I'm also inclined to say that I can't say that 100% because of the fact that he's had a long career. Again, he's 30 years old. He's been in the league for a while there. That is one of those things that once you hit 30 every year, it's like, is this the same guy? Is this the same guy? Is this the same guy?
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's a fair statement. That's a fair statement, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he bounces back.
Again, he got distractions. I'm with you. I just can't guarantee it. And that's what scares me is because I don't know what he's going to get. I don't know what they're going to do with him, in free agency. If somebody goes, you know what, he's a good number 2 receiver at this point in his career. That's what I need. I'm going for it. Because he had 250 yards in 6 games with the Browns, 297 and 8 with the Bills. 8. The Bills don't have a great wide receiver core, guys.
They don't.
They traded for him. They wanted him.
But you're also talking about those 8 games where they remember how to, run the ball.
Yep.
And which they were not doing the first half of the game. So, like, the Bills started playing a little sort of football then. So, once again, there's some obstacles going there. He also came in midway through the season as well, where he still learned the playbook. Granted, he had some extended plays going into the postseason. But
how many, I'm going to say it this way. How many yards in the last 3 weeks of the season do you think Cooper had with the Bills? The last 3 games combined. Give me a random number. How many do you think?
93.
Less. He had 41 yards in 3 games in the season.
Damn, I doubled it. That's
He had 33 yards against the Chiefs. He had no yards, no catches against the Ravens. These are the 2 playoff games. He had 8 yards against the Broncos. He had 56 yards against the Jets. Was his probably one of his better games all year long. 10 yards against the Patriots. He didn't have a single catch against the Lions. It's not good, guys. So I get, and that's where I was thinking in my head, like, okay, was he learning the playbook? Was he learning how to be a Bill, so to speak? Well, it just shows you right there. 41 yards in 3 games tells me either that was just a bad stretch and it's bad luck for him to look that way, or it wasn't him. It's just something's off. And I don't know. That's one of the things you kind of have to have that conversation with him to find out and see what he says. But I do think he's starting to slow down a little bit. I do think there was a lot of also distractions this season for him. And I think he's probably not as bad as this season, but he's probably not as good as he used to be still. And he may be a guy now that maxes out at 900 to 1,000 yards instead of a guy who, prior season had 1,250 yards. And he may be that Robin now.
Yeah. Could be. I mean, he's come down to that time. Once again, like you said, of his career, where 30 years old, things come downhill. But I don't know. It's hard to say because a lot of the time doesn't affect everyone the same. No. And it could have just been a lot of distractions.
It's affecting me today. My back's
me both.
All right, next up, we go to the offensive line here. And then we'll do another receiver because we can't help ourselves. Listen, I literally went in the list that PFF gave us and went down and said, okay, that makes sense. That doesn't make sense. That makes sense. That doesn't make sense. So we got our first offensive lineman. And this is a guy that'd be a pipe dream to a certain degree, but not without his faults. And that's Ronnie Staley, who, another guy, by the way, who does charity work with animals. So got to give the credit at that point.
Yay.
Ronnie Staley is also is 30 years old. PFF said it's hard to argue that any player improved their free agency stock more this season than Ravens left tackle. After a devastating ankle injury in 2021 seemed to stall his career, Ronnie Staley was back to top form in 2024, posting an impressive 79.6 PFF passing grade through the first 12 weeks. Now, there's a key part of what I said there, guys. Left tackle. For him to come to the Giants, he'd have to agree to play right tackle. Now, here's the interesting thing you get into this, though. So, like, you hear about this all the time with players like Orlando Brown is a classic example. Like, I want to play left tackle. Left tackles get paid better. And he's not wrong. For the record, he ain't wrong. But when you're 30 years old, you're not as worried about that. This is potentially your last big deal you ever get. Let's be honest. He's going to get a 5-year deal. He's going to get probably $100 million at least. Unless the injuries are that concerning to people, because that's a legit concern. He missed 4 games in 23, 6 in 22, and then only played in 7 games combined in 20 and 21. That's not good.
Yeah.
But he played a full season this year. So if your medical people think he's good, do you take the risk? And would he want to play right tackle? Like I said, I think it's different when you're 30. I really do. Like, you're not worried about that next big deal because this is your last big deal. Yeah. As long as you're getting paid appropriately for what you're doing, who cares?
Yeah, that's fair. He's gonna talk to his agent. He's gonna go to a couple of, I guess, tryouts practices, if you will.
Yeah,
they're gonna bring him in, work him out, and then I wouldn't be surprised. Not just us, like anywhere he goes, might be right tackle.
Who knows? I mean, unless you got a place like just is, perpetually just trying to save their quarterback, like the Chiefs or the Bengals. There's a couple teams that just can't seem to get offensive line right. Maybe they take a shot at a nice veteran like that. But like I said, to me, I don't think it's crazy to sit there and say, let's call him up and see if he would. Because if you go ahead and get him hypothetically at right tackle, you can sit there and say, you know what? We know you've been a great left tackle for many years. We have one already, obviously, in Andrew Thomas. We'd like to put you in the right side. We're going to pay you appropriately. We're not trying to hurt you by the switch. And if Andrew Thomas gets hurt, we'd have no problem putting you back over to left tackle for that time period. You see what he says? Worst thing he says is no. Best thing he says is let's talk turkey.
Ooh.
Gobble gobble. And then you got a guy who, like I said, is a veteran, legit tackle on both ends of your offensive line. And you can really now protect whoever the quarterback is going to be. You can go ahead and move Illuminor into guard. And now let's say you re-sign Van Roten is now going to battle it out with JMS for center. You improve multiple positions of your line potentially in one shot.
Yeah.
That's worth it. That's where I'm a little more willing to pay for a tackle than I am for a guard. Because you don't get that chain reaction when you go get a guy like a Trey Smith. You get that chain reaction when you can move Illuminor in and then potentially move Greer Van Roten in too. So, like I said, to me, it's worth it. But, we gotta go ahead and see what he's willing to do. And that's what it boils down to. He does get to decide where he goes. So, all right, let's pay the bills real quick. And then we're going to get into your guys' comments real quick there. Bills time.
Enjoying the show? Looking for more goofball action? Consider a membership at buymeacoffee.com/2giantgoofballs. Memberships start at just $5 and give you additional goofball access. One-time support payments also available starting at just $3. buymeacoffee.com/2giantgoofballs.
All righty, guys. Vinny G-Man starts up with what's up, fellas? Always watch. Appreciate it, man.
What's up, brother?
Appreciate it. Big Blue with the Brock. What up, fellas? What up?
What up?
Says, let's put our money towards a bridge and a CB. Murphy, Ward, DJ Reed, etc. And Murphy, I'm going to give you guys fair warning. He did not make their top 25. But I like Murphy as an option. I think someone's going to way overpay for him, personally. I think he's that guy that's going to get way overpaid. And again, you always overpay in free agency.
Yeah.
I don't want to ridiculously overpay. And that's what I feel like is going to happen. I just think Murphy's going to be that guy. I just have a feeling he's going to I don't want to say reset the market. He's going to pay the top market, and he's not top.
Yeah.
That's the problem you run into. He's the Tee Higgins of corners. I'm going to keep making that analogy, by the way. And then he says, Giants should pass on Smith, in my opinion. Not the year to pay Smith $20 million. Happened to Robert Hunt, and it worked in Carolina, but exactly. And Robert Hunt was a guy that, by the way, guys, the Giants were very much interested. If you watched, Hard Knocks, they didn't expect him to go that high. So they know what they're getting this time. So, Connor says, so it'd be cheaper to get Daniel Jones back. Oh, well, we're not getting Daniel Jones. We put that one up already during the. Andre, what's up, man? Says, what up, guys? After the PFF projected Holland's contract at almost $100 million and Shane let X walk, I'm so scary because I'm feeling he will spend money in safety. I think he might spend some money in safety position there. And I'm not too worried about him spending money. It just got to be spent correctly. I think he's going to look for someone cheaper, to be honest with you, at safety.
I think so.
Joe Schoen has shown what he does. He pays for premium positions. And what I mean by that is quarterback, wide receiver, offensive line, defensive edge rushers, corners, and that's it. Everybody else is not really considered a premium position. Those are the guys that you can go ahead and get a guy to pay less than $10 million in free agency. So That's why I don't know if he'd go that kind of route. I think like you said, he opens himself up. You mentioned, Xavier McKinney as well. You open yourself up for that critique. He gets enough critique. He's good.
Yeah.
He's a one more. He also says, we like to say desperate men make desperate decisions. And yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. And he says, the name's linked to the Giants. Tevin Jenkins is a good player, but he's not healthy. Unfortunately, our offensive line isn't either. Another name with a history of injuries is complicated. Yeah, and, Jenkins is a guy you do hear about quite often as well. Again, another guy who just barely didn't make this list with the Bears. And, yeah, again, can't stay healthy. And I have issues with people that can't stay healthy, even though I know we said Ronnie Staley, but he was healthy last year, so maybe he finally got over the injury. Hirsch for real. Hello, fellas. What's up?
What's up, man?
Connor says, hope we're not going to get players because of their charity work. LOL. Let's stop.
Do you not like animals, Connor?
That's how you got girls with their charity work. Oh.
Listen, it's not charity when you have to pay for it. I'm only kidding.
You pay to go to most charity events. But no, he says
full profit though.
He says, please, nobody with injuries or older. We got to get young badasses and trade our pick to get more offensive line and backups and develop them. The problem you run into, man, is you don't get young badasses, as you put it, available in free agency. Those guys don't tend to hit the open market. So if you want to get a player in free agency, they're going to be either older, a little more injury prone, or priced out of what the team that has them currently can afford. Like a Tee Higgins in that case. And that means you either have risk, short window, or overpaying.
Or sometimes multiple.
That's a combination thereof.
Yeah.
Look, column A, column B. So yeah, like I said, I'm with you. But if you got any that you think, go for it. Let me know who you think, but I don't think that's going to happen. Those guys usually get tagged. So, Hurst for real says Shador at 3 and TJ Sanders, the defensive tackle, in the second round. I think you're going to see a defensive lineman at some point in rounds 2 to 4. I don't know where, but I think 2 to 4 is where you're going to probably see it. Nikito TV, do you guys think we get one of these stud running backs coming out? I think that you're probably going to see, like, similar to what we did with Tracy. If we don't get a running back, I'm hoping, in free agency, I hope we get one then that 4th, 5th, kind of range, because you don't have to get first ones. So,
yeah.
Adam says short contracts on niche players. Some of them, yes, but I think you need to get 1 or 2 decent players. I think corner to me is the big one. Like corner, like legit. We're talking about a lot of wide receivers. A lot of wide receivers have me in the top 25, but corner is a spot that we have to get at least 1 legit corner in free agency, and then we can still draft one on top of that. But you got to get one that you can actually put in, because if you're counting on Deonte Banks or Deonte Banks and a rookie to be your number 1 corner, you are in trouble. Point blank.
Bring in the vet.
Connor says, yeah, Shane overpays for positions. Daniel Jones, unfortunately. Again, premium position quarterback. He pays for premium positions. He doesn't pay for what he doesn't deem premium. The one exception to that is Okereke.
And everyone keeps on bringing up Daniel Jones and overpaying him, but that's hindsight. Everyone agreed with this contract.
But it's also, like I said, it's that premium position.
Yeah.
What he does. Deb says, did Giants get a new conditioning coach this year? They got one last year. So I didn't hear anything about him getting fired, but they did get a new one last year, though I forget the title of the game. It was a much more fancy title. Very fancy. Connor says, I'll have a fried dumplings, column A, and General Tso's, column B. Okay? Try all of column C.
Ooh.
Oh, yes. I went a little Disney on you. All righty, let's get to the next one here, because we got another wide receiver to talk about.
Ooh.
So many wide receivers. That's what I'm saying. This is that year that if you want to get a veteran wide receiver, this is the year to do it. And this one's going to be a little controversial. Stephon Diggs, who has been linked to the Giants quite often because obviously the Brian Dable connection from his days in Buffalo. PFF said playing in an offense where he was no longer the top target didn't hinder Diggs' effectiveness. The star wide receiver was on pace to extend his streak of seasons with a PFF receiving rate above 75 and a drop rate below 10% on catchable passes before a season-ending ACL tear. That type of injury for an older player who wins with lateral agility will make for an interesting free agent dance. Diggs' situation has shades of Odell Beckham Jr.'s free agency period in 2023 when he tore his ACL in the Super Bowl in 2021 and did not play in 2022 before signing a one-year, $15 million fully guaranteed contract. This past year, 24 here, 8 games, all starts, 47 receptions, 496 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So definitely down from what he usually had. But again, like they said, he doesn't, have to be because he wasn't the top target. Like Buffalo, he was the center of the offense with Allen to Diggs, Allen to Diggs, Allen to Diggs. He had Nico Collins, he had Tank Dell, he had other receivers at that point there. Plus he got a pretty decent tight end, Dalton Schultz there too. So there's plenty of weapons. He was one of them. So, I like what he produced in the time period he produced it. I got too many flags. Too many flags here. A, 31 years old. B, coming off an ACL tear. C, and this is a capital C, what you were saying right there. Personality. His attitude is an issue. I'm sorry. Like I hate talking about personality and these people as people because I don't know them. I don't pretend to. But when I see year in, year out in Buffalo about him complaining about it, wanting out and blah, 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 after complaining and wanting out in Minnesota, too many red flags.
Yeah.
Now, we have the benefit of if the Giants hypothetically went for Diggs, Dable and Shane know what they're getting into, obviously. Like, they know damn well who he is and what he is. There's no doubt about that. They spent years with him. Oh, as we lost Rob there. That's how much Rob does not want to sign Stephon Diggs there. But, we've had plenty of time with these guys seeing how he is and how his personality is. So if they trust that his personality is not an issue, I got to deflect to their expertise in that because, again, they know him personally. But he's not a person that I would want. And considering the personality issues he's had, and the fact that we have a very young star receiver in Malik Nabers, do I really want to go ahead and put him on a team with Nabers where he can poison the well, so to speak? Where he can, make him think it's okay to act a certain way because here's his veteran that's here doing it. Because like him or not, Stephon Diggs is a guy who is going to be a potential, depending on how much longer his career is, a potential Hall of Fame player. And I know that sounds absolutely nuts because I feel like you don't hear about that enough with him. You really don't. But the guy's already got over 10,000 receiving yards. He has just a couple more seasons. He's at that point where you start talking about him as a legitimate Hall of Fame kind of guy. So he comes in with credibility. And he's not a guy that I'd want around Nabers. Just point blank would not want him around Nabers at all.
Yeah, absolutely not.
I guess Rob didn't want him so bad he left the show temporarily.
I was that upset. I was like, nope, I'm out.
I'm out.
No, but if you're talking about you got a star number one, that's he's going to be our number one. Like, that's pretty much a lock-in. You got a head case. I should have said head case. Like, he seemed like he calmed down a little bit this year, but a guy that has been a proven track record of
being a headache.
Wanting the center
headache.
of attention. Yeah, headache. Yeah. You don't want to teach that to your young wide one. Like,
no, because Nabers will be playing long after
he's gone.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't want to teach that kind of stuff there to him.
Yeah.
That's for sure. But again, great career he's had. And if he can get back from this massive injury, because that's not easy to come back from at that age. If he comes back, then and play for a couple more years, like I said, he's a guy you're going to see potentially get in the Hall of Fame. He's that good.
Yeah, he'll probably finish as tenure with the Raiders.
That's where people go to die. So,
yeah.
All right. Next up, we got a corner. Corner alert. Corner alert. This is what we need. We need a corner.
Hit the corner flags.
And we got Charvarius Ward, who is probably the biggest name corner available in this free agency. And also a guy that I'm pretty confident is not going to be tagged by the Niners. So he will become available. So PFF said Ward struggled in 2024 and posted career lows in a number of PFF metrics, but his overall body of work will keep him as one of the top options on the market in 2025. Last year was his best in the NFL to date with a 86.5 PFF coverage grade, ranking third amongst all players at his position, with cornerback teammate Lenore receiving an in-season extension. The writing appears on the wall that Ward will be on his way out of San Francisco. Now, he also had a big family tragedy, and he already said point blank, I can't stay in San Francisco for my own mental health. I need out. So we already know he's going to leave San Francisco. Like I said, all signs point that. What I find funny is he posted career lows in number of PFF metrics. Last year was his best in the NFL to date with an 86.5 PFF coverage grade. PFF, make up your damn mind. He's a corner. I care about two things with corners. I'm going to say one, but I'll give you two. I care about how you can cover. That's number one. That should be number 1, 2, and 3, and 4. But the only other thing I'll say is will they come up and hit a running back, or will they Dory Jackson it?
Yeah,
it's very important. About
that. It's very important. So,
but yeah, 86.5 coverage grade. I'll take that all day long. 12 games this season. All 12 were starts. Obviously, 54 tackles, a tackle for loss, and 5 passes deflected. But what's really the big thing on this is one of the few guys you're going to see in the market that legit has the potential to be a number 1 corner. There's not a lot of guys you can sit there and say are number 1 corner. And not a lot of them hit the open market. And here's the problem. When they hit the open market, they're going to be 28 years old, 29 years old before the season starts. This is a guy that you got maybe a couple of years, and that's it. That's it. And what I like about him is, let's say you sign him to a 3-year contract, hypothetically. Because I think that's legit, a 3-year contract. So you get a 3-year contract. You let him out at the end of 3 years. At that point, he's now 32 years old as a free agent again. You got him for years 29, 30, and 31. If he's probably going to be tailing down around 31, maybe even 30, maybe going to give a year or two, and that's it. Like I said before, he starts tailing down. And you hope Banks can take over as CB1. And you hope Ward can be a good guy to go ahead and mentor him. Because I know the Giants aren't giving up on Banks. So I'm kind of including that in my head, even though I disagree with that mentality. I would say, screw it. We need to go places. You can decide if you're coming along or not. That's my mentality, would be point blank. Because you gave us some BS last year. I would point blank have that mentality. But I could see where the Giants go, no, we drafted this guy. We traded up with this guy. This needs to be the guy. You're bringing a guy like Ward, who's going to be, again, 29 years old. He's at the tail end of his prime here, at the very tail end of it. You bring him in. You don't pay him more than a couple of years. Like I said, 2-3 years, and that's it. And then you can bring in, somebody else, or hope that Banks recovers and becomes the number 1. Worst things to do. Worst things you could do. So, all right. Let's talk about another wide receiver. How many wide receivers on this list? It's insanity. How many good, veteran wide receivers are coming up on this list? I am checking here. This is the last one, though, guys. Last one. DeAndre Hopkins. We've talked about him before as well, because he's an interesting potential guy to bring in. So 32 years old, definitely on the older side. He's definitely on the very, very tail end of his career. By the way, we talk about Hall of Famers, Hall of Fame career right there. I'm saying it right now.
Oh yeah.
If this man's not in the Hall of Fame, what he did in Houston with what he had to work with is absolutely insane to me. Guys, 35 yards away from hitting 13,000 yards. That's insane. Like, absolutely. That's like, yeah. I look at the crap he had. Like, Matt Schaub was his best quarterback before Watson came in. So he's number 21 right now in all-time receiving yards. If he gets 235 yards next season, which is obviously extremely, extremely legitimately possible, he'll pass Jason Witten, Steve Largent, and Andre Reed. Like I said, legitimate Hall of Fame guy.
Yeah.
Let's say he does 2,000 more yards for his career, and that's it. Get to 2 more years of mediocrity. You have a guy now that goes at about 15,000 yards. Only people that ever hit 15,000 yards: Tony Gonzalez, Isaac Bruce, Randy Moss, T.O., Larry Fitzgerald, and Jerry Rice.
Some good talent to be in.
That's legit good talent to be in. So, like I said, just a little perspective on how good his career would be, because I think he's undervalued by history right now. We'll see if that changes. Anyway, PFF said Hopkins was traded at the deadline from the struggling Tennessee Titans to the perennial Super Bowl contender Kansas City Chiefs. A national spotlight through the playoffs never hurts, and Hopkins continued to play through a knee injury, which suggests he can fully heal up over the offseason in time for 2025. This season, 16 games, 8 starts, 56 catches, 610 yards, and 5 touchdowns. So he'll be 33 then when the season starts, guys. And that's the biggest issue you got is the age.
Yeah.
How much is left in that tank? They mentioned that he had a knee injury. He was playing through it. Guy playing through a knee injury is still at 600 yards. Don't tell me he can't be a 700-800 yards receiver. I'm not saying he's going to be a 1,300 yard receiver ever again. He probably never will be.
Probably not. But it's not a bad guy to have in your roster.
And again, this is the mentor part.
I was about to say, plus he took a strong mentor role this past year to help with Worthy.
Yeah, I was about to say he did a lot, and he spoke out publicly in support of Worthy quite often. Like, I honestly wouldn't be even 100% shocked if the Chiefs try to bring him back. But I feel like this is a guy that the Giants, if they wanted to get another receiver, let's say they let Slayton go and say, you know what, let's go get a cheap option for a year. We'll handle this next year. Or we'll draft a guy and see if somebody else can take on the reins of this role the following year. Hopkins is going to be cheap, guys. Like, the age is going to absolutely kill his market. I'm telling you right now. Like, he's not going to be the guy that I'm like, oh, let's pay $15 million a year to this guy. He's not that player anymore. His contract, let's see his contract here the last couple of years. So he got with 2023. Oh my God, his contract was crazy. His contract was his cap hit was $11 million in 2024, and $10 million, just under $11 million, was his schedule for this year before crazy hoop. Oh, this is dead. I'm sorry. Over the cap is getting a little crazy on me here right now. Let's go into his actual number. Here we go. His cap number was about 4 and change the last 2 seasons. You're telling me you wouldn't pay $5 million for Hopkins?
Oh, without a doubt.
I would do it. In a heartbeat. If you're telling me, and this is only if I let Slayton go, by the way, which you all know that I love having Slayton in this team. I want to keep Slayton. I'm not trying to get rid of Slayton in any way, shape, or form. Start with it out there first. But if we do, you can do a whole lot worse than bringing in Hopkins and have him be a mentor for a year to Nabers and then kick that problem down the road to next year. Let's be honest at this point, and I hate to say this is going to sound disrespectful to all that Hopkins has done for this NFL scene. Hopkins and Slayton are about the same quality right now.
It's fair to say, though. Like,
it is. I mean, again, if Hopkins was healthy, he's probably 700-800 yard guy. 700 yards is what Slayton usually gives you. And he's going to be cheaper. And like I said, I feel like the Giants have not wanted Slayton for a while. I don't know why. Keep trying to move on from him. Maybe Hopkins even teaches Jalen Hyatt how to actually be a receiver.
That would be nice.
So that's what I'm saying. I mean, he's a good water boy and all, but eventually he's got to actually catch the ball. Just saying. So, like I said, I think it's not it's not a bad move, I think so. All right, let's go to another corner. We need some corners here. We got Rasul Douglas out of Buffalo. 29 years old. So again, this is the age you get corners available. PFF said Douglas faced some challenges in 2024, but his knack for making plays on the ball ensures he'll attract significant interest in 2025. Heading into the 2024 campaign, he had recorded at least 7 pass breakups in 6 of the 7 NFL seasons and notched 4 or more interceptions each of the past 3 seasons. Again, that's prior to this year. He didn't have that this year. 15 games, all starts, 58 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 5 passes deflected, and 1 forced fumble. So he definitely took a little bit of a step back this year. Again, 29 years old. He'll be 30 at the time of the start of the season. He's a legit NFL corner. The question is, and this is the one issue I run into with him, if we sign him, yes, he's an upgrade over anybody else we had this year. Let me point that out there right now. But is he good enough to be a number 1 when he's coming off a down year?
That's the question you have to question.
You do. You do. And like I said, I feel like that's what you got to look at is look at the tape and find out why there was a drop-off. Was it an issue with speed? Was it an issue with agility? Was it an issue with mental mistakes? Was it an issue? There's reasons for it. But what are the reasons? Because you got to look at that and go, this is a guy who's probably going to be cheaper than a lot of the guys we've already talked about, point blank. Like, I don't think he's going to be commanding a ton of money. I mean, there'll be teams interested, don't get me wrong, but he'll be a guy you can get to $5 to $8 million probably.
Right up.
And he's been a year and a half now with the Bills. So was there an issue with the scheme in him, maybe? I mean, again, these are questions you got to look at. You got to watch all the tape and find these things out. But I mean, he's been on multiple teams and fit in and played well. So you got a little bit of a comfort level with that part. Like I said, you got to look at that film more, and you got to find out why.
Yeah.
So, by the way, though, Jersey boy. So maybe you grew up a Giants fan even. I feel like that's never looked at enough when you get a guy from like New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and it's like, why don't we go ahead and look at the guys like that and hey, you grew up a Giants fan?
Do you really want to play for the Giants? Because that would be fantastic.
I'm telling you, like seriously, if I'm a player and I have an option between going to 2 or 3 teams and the Giants is one of them, I'd even take a little less money to play for the Giants.
Yeah. At that point, what's a mill when you've already made multi millions?
Exactly. Easy for me to say I don't have that kind of money in front of me, but whatever.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to another big body here. We got another tackle to talk about here, and that's Cam Robinson, who got traded, of course, from the Jaguars over to the Vikings this year due to injuries they had at their offensive line, and obviously they thought they'd be making a playoff run. Play were they wrong, but they thought they were, so they decided to go ahead and bring him in and did a decent job for them. PFF's right up on him. Robinson was part of a Jaguars team that had a dismal start to 2024, but individually, he was a reliable option at left tackle before being acquired by the Vikings at the trade deadline. His 95.1 pass blocking efficiency rating this regular season was the worst mark of his career. But if anything, that's a testament to his play over the past 4 years. Again, key word. We're going to have the same conversation basically we had with Ronnie Staley. You got to look at the fact that this guy played left tackle. He's played left tackle for his career. Would he be interested in moving on to the right side? Because we're not moving Andrew Thomas.
No, that's just ridiculous.
This is another guy who's a little bit older, but he's a year or two younger than Staley. He's 29 years old. So we talked about it, how there's a difference in how you get paid as a left or right tackle. I don't care how we pay these guys personally. I just want a good offensive line. But if Cam Robinson wants to come over and is willing to play right tackle and the money can work, I don't see an issue with it. Plus, again, you got a guy who can go ahead and play left tackle if and when, at this point, Andrew Thomas gets hurt the year. Because it seems to be inevitable. And his offensive line plays so much better when Andrew Thomas is healthy. Plays so much better. You lose him, the whole thing falls apart. Look at the difference after he got injured. The whole thing falls apart.
It was a completely different offensive line.
So, maybe having somebody who's a starter at right tackle that also plays your left tackle position isn't the worst thing in the world. It's what we ended up having to do this year. We put Illuminor back over the left side, who, by the way, did an adequate job. I'm not upset with his job at all, but I think he's better off as a right tackle or a guard. And that's not a disrespect. I have a great season for us. Good value deal in free agency getting him, I think, still. But like I said, here's a guy we have, that could go ahead and potentially be that right tackle for us. Luminar, again, moves into right guard. Greg Van Roden, you re-sign him, and you put him up as your main backup, or you let him go into battle with JMS for center. Stop handing people roles. Could do a lot worse. I do have some concerns in his run blocking, though. Ooh, that run blocking is bad. It's bad. His run blocking was just like I said, it was below average. His pass blocking above average. So, are you willing to take the good with the bad? Because he definitely would help out a rookie quarterback. That's what the name of the game is right now. What can we do to help a rookie quarterback? And getting an offensive line improvement is going to help a rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
And everybody else by default. So, all right, we're going to give you one out of left field. So, this one is one that I feel like
it's not a bad one, though.
Yeah, but I feel like I think this is one that people are going to bash automatically because it's going to bring back, and this is what we talked about the McKinney deal as far as getting a safety. This is going to be the same thing with the running back position. They're going to say, why don't you just pay Saquon Barkley? And that's Aaron Jones, who had a little bit of a resurgent year there with the Minnesota Vikings this year. It's something that ex-Packers do. They go to the Vikings and it seems to be good for a year.
Yes. That's where Aaron Rodgers is going next year.
I keep hearing that rumor. It'd be funny. Well, what's his name too? I'm drawing a blank here. We're talking back into Brett Favre. Was Donald Driver who went there?
I believe so.
Yes, Driver went there. Aaron Jones went there. Brett Favre went there. It happens. PFF said Jones took a 1-year deal with the Vikings this offseason and looks set to be one of the top running backs available again in 2025. His 75.8 PFF rushing grade in the regular season ranked 22nd amongst running backs, and he brings consistent production as the owner of 8 straight 75.0 plus PFF overall grades. His numbers in the season: 17 games all starts, 255 rushes for 1,138 yards, the 4.5 yards per carry average, 5 touchdowns. Receiving wise, 51 receptions, 408 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So, I mean, guy did over 1,500 total yards. I think if you can bring him in, if you can, let's say you can get out of Devin Singletary first off, because you got to get rid of Devin Singletary to make that even make sense. But let's say you can go ahead and do that. Aaron Jones, if you're not going to pay him a ton of money, you could bring him in and he'd be an upgrade. And he'd be a perfect guy to put with Tyrone Tracy Jr. But here's the problem. You can't pay him a lot of money because then you might as well keep Barkley. You can't pay him a ton of money or you may as well keep Singletary. That's the problem you're running into with this whole thing. This is a move that would open you up for issues and for ridicule. And I'm not so sure Aaron Jones at this point in his career wants to come to the Giants. That's part of it too. He's 30 years old. The end is near. He knows it. So does he really want to sit there and play on a team that just had 3 wins last year?
He's probably looking to play with a playoff team. that's probably a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah. I mean, that's what he went to with the Vikings. That's what he came from with the, with the Packers. Like, he's not used to losing. So he would do it. Probably there's no other option because he wants to play. But, and the Giants, you have to look at it, go, how much left in the tank? We're bringing in a 30-year-old running back? Yeah. Like I said, it's enough.
Granny had 1,500 total yards.
Yes.
He also had a pretty solid offensive line last year. And he had some other weapons around him, which also helped.
Oh, yeah, it definitely helps. But, like I said, I feel like he's the kind of move that if you can get him, you don't expect that kind of season again, but you pair him with Tracy, and it's actually a good punch for the year.
I think so.
But, again, you got to get rid of Singletary first. Got to get rid of him. So, all righty. 2 more guys to go. Secondary guys. Another corner here first.
Ooh,
Carlton Davis the third, not to be confused with Carlton Banks. 28 years old, so we got a year younger. PFF says the Tampa Bay Buccaneers traded Davis to the Lions in the offseason. He provided immediate stability to a young Detroit secondary that badly needed it after the defense endured an unfathomable number of injuries in 2024, most notably to Defensive Player of the Year frontrunner Aiden Hutchinson. Davis, too, suffered a season-ending injury of fractured jaw that ended his season after Week 15. Here's a nice thing. I feel like a fractured jaw is not going to affect him in any way, shape, or form. Like, it's not like, oh my God, he's got a fractured jaw. It can affect him for a year or two. I mean, that doesn't go ahead and affect him like that. I mean, ask Geno Smith. He didn't when he got punched. I had to bring it up.
Did he break his jaw though?
No, he didn't break his jaw.
I was gonna say.
Davis on the year, 13 games, all starts, 56 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 2 interceptions, 11 passes deflected, and a forced fumble. I feel like he's a less expensive option than, somebody like, Ward or Reed. He's probably going to be paid much, more in like Douglas would get paid. But I think, honestly, of these options, he probably would be my number one option I'd want a corner. Because of the fact that I don't think he's going to cost as much money. Because of the fact he had a good year last year. And because you hear a lot of good about what he did over in Detroit as far as for the locker room, as you heard there. I just feel like that's the guy that I would want to bring in here.
Yeah. Not too old. Get him at a good price. Leader of the locker room, leader of men, help mentor young room. Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm good right there. Slam dunk. I'd be happy. Like I said, you got to pay him right. And what you pay him is going to depend on what the market value is overall. And that, unfortunately, we don't have an answer for you on that. I let people like say, oh, he's going to get this much for sure. Like, we have no clue. I call it like Christian Kirk syndrome. Remember when he got signed by the Jaguars for like $100 million deal? And everybody's like, whoa, what the hell? Like, nobody would have called that. Nobody would have called that. And that's exactly what happened. And it was a ridiculously high contract he got. And, yet he went there and got 1,100-yard season the first year. So, yeah, maybe they were somewhat right, at least. He hasn't done that since, but maybe they were somewhat right there. But, I mean, he was injured a lot of last year. He's probably, honestly, he's like an 800-yard kind of guy. But, yeah, like I said, it's you never know. You just don't. So, especially with a team like the Giants, sometimes you have to overpay to get a good player on a bad team.
Sometimes that's the case.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, we got one more for you guys, and it's an intriguing option here. So, we got, I'm going to mispronounce his name as I always do, Talanoa Hufanga, and 26 years old. PFF said a 5th-round draft pick in 2021. Hufanga earned PFF coverage grades above 65 in both 22 and 23. He played just 308 snaps in 24 due to injury and earned a career low 57.8 overall grade. Just 7 games last year, 38 tackles and 2 tackles for loss. But he was first team All-Pro back in 22. And again, 26 years old. There's a difference between a 26-year-old coming off an injury that had no prior injury history and a 32-year-old player that's had multiple injuries. I just want to clarify that because it's just bad timing for him. He hasn't shown to be injury prone. It's just one bad year he had. And everybody who plays in the NFL has that 1 year.
If you're not injured, are you playing in the NFL? What's going on?
Yeah, that's basically what it is. So, I mean, you got to wonder because he's still young. You can still sign him to a long deal contract if you had to, which means you can get that first year debt number down, which helps you out right now. He's probably going to be cheaper because he's coming off the big injury as well.
This is true.
The big question, and this is where you're taking a chance. Is it safe to say San Francisco has a lot of defensive talent?
They have a lot of talent over there.
So how much of it was him and how much was his supporting cast around him? Could he replicate that without having everybody around him?
Well, that's it. And that was an argument last year during the second half of the season for the Niners is how much better just one player being there makes the rest of that defense. But Bosa not there, their numbers almost doubled on defensive of what they were giving up.
Yeah. Like I said, you don't know. You don't know with this guy. And you got to question that, and you got to take that into evaluation there and know that you're taking a risk there. And no player's at a risk, let's be very frank. You know, Patrick Mahomes is not going to be hitting the free agency market anytime soon.
No.
Like, that's just not how it is. So you're going to take your risk. You're going to get somebody who's injured, old, expensive, or a combination. In this case here, you have injured. So, but like I said, we potentially need a safety with what's going on with free agency. So we don't know what's going to happen yet with Pinnock. And he's an upgrade over Pinnock. Either way, if you can re-sign Pinnock, I don't think you go, okay, well, I wouldn't go after a guy like this because I got Jason Pinnock back.
Yeah.
Pinnock becomes your third corner, your third safety, and this becomes your starter. Done. But again, you can't spend a lot of money on free agency and safeties, or else you open up that window, people to mock you. I just feel like Shane's going to do that. He's going to make moves not to get mocked. And I'd rather him own up to it and say, you know what? We had a great safety here. We lost him in free agency. We weren't going to lose the chance to get another one that could replace him. Own up to it.
Yeah.
Own up to it.
You do that, and like the ridicule of just not saying anything or not sign a player because the cost of it, may be too high or maybe mimic of something you already lost. Just own it. Just be like, listen, we lost the free agency. The market's different now, and this is what we have to do to make the team better going forward. Guess what? You squish it almost immediately. People will talk about it, but you almost squish it immediately.
Well, it's also he's not going to get paid like McKinney because of the injury.
Yeah,
he's not going to reset the market. That's not what it's going to be. So, all righty, guys. Well, that's our last guy here. So that's going to call it a night for us. So we'll be back, though, again for you guys tomorrow night. So have no fear. We're going to be back here again tomorrow. And tomorrow we'll give you guys any kind of news we got going on left in the week. We want to kind of break that up for you guys because we feel like it's been news. Listen, what we got this time of year, news and rumors.
That's it.
But thought it'd be a nice little breakup. I also want to hear, feel free to put in the comments section. We have not done our award show we've done the first 2 seasons. And the main reason we haven't done it, quite frankly, is because nobody deserves an award.
Be a short summary.
Let us know in the comments if you want us to do it. And if you want us to do it and we get enough people that say in the comments, let's do it, we'll go ahead and do it next week. But I'm of the train of thought that it's like you're giving out like participation trophies at this point.
I was going to say
that's why we haven't done it. I don't think anybody deserves an award this year. There's no defense, no being rude about the players that tried their butts off and played well, but it's like you got 3 wins, guys. So
yay.
Let us know if you want it. We'll do it. If you don't let us know, we ain't doing it. That's how we're going to do it. Nice and simple. So, all righty, guys. As always, we are live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, X/Twitter, and of course, Rob's favorite,
Drew's David profile.
my LinkedIn profile. And of course, as always, we're available the next day on all the audio podcast platforms as well. That is Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Amazon, all the big ones there. So if you haven't already, hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the share button there. And then next time you go in your car, next time you're in the shower listening to a podcast, make sure you do that with us as well. Just don't listen to us naked. Put your swimming trunks on if you're in the shower. It's just weird.
Please, yeah.
Makes me feel weird. All righty, guys. We'll see you guys again tomorrow night. Again, appreciate you guys for watching as always. And as always, Giant fans, go G-Man! Go G-Man! Go G-Berries!
G-Berries.
Thanks for listening to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. We appreciate your support.
Thanks so much.
Please, I'm begging you.